Listen up. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the podcast participants, and not to any participant's employer, organization, committee, or other group or individual. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. You know, for fun. So lighten up and enjoy. Hey friends, welcome to our last show in January 2026. Hard to believe it's happening, but I'm glad you're here. On the show this week, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this massive snowstorm we just got, which I am dubbing the blizzard of January 2026. So creative. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a movie I watched with my 15-year-old daughter. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the execution of Alex Pretti in Minneapolis by Trump's Border Patrol and ICE goons. So, here we go.
The Soft Serve Podcast.
You're a loser, a scumbag, lower than scum. You are a absolute zero. Lower than scum. A scumbag. Absolute zero.
Oh, yeah. Absolute zero. Scumbag.
Lower than scum. A scumbag. Absolute zero.
Listen to that loon. Loons. I love loons.
Lower than scum.
Yeah, scumbag. Alright, that's enough of that intro music. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. I am delighted to be here with you. I am delighted that you're listening. You know, since restarting the show, slowly but surely, we're starting to get more regular listeners, which is a good thing. And I hope if you're listening to this, you're one of them. So welcome. I am Sawtooth Frank, and this is the Soft Serve Podcast. If you're a long-time listener, you'll know that I have a co-host who is taking a break from the show, Stomping Jen. We did well over 200 episodes together, and I think she's just taken a little bit longer to come back to the show than I wanted to. So I was ready to come back. She's not quite ready to rejoin us, but I think we're getting close. Anyways, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here, obviously. And there's just a few things I wanted to talk with you about this week. I think it's going to be a shorter show. I don't have a writing project or an essay to share with you like I have in past weeks. It's just going to be me blabbering at you. Blah, 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 blah. But nobody wants to hear that, do they? No, they don't. All right, well, we just had a massive blizzard here in Massachusetts, where I live and where we record this podcast. I know folks on the eastern side of the country, all up and down the coast, also experienced this blizzard. It was a pretty serious deal. I think something like 12 people died as a result of the weather. Over 800,000 people lost power. It was a serious deal. A lot of the infrastructure in the South got damaged because they're not built to and prepared for handling large amounts of snow. But thankfully, up here in Massachusetts, we deal with this stuff a little more often, so we were prepared. But preparation can only take you so far, honestly. You know, where I live, we have a pretty long driveway, and it's a pretty wide driveway at certain parts, so you need a snowblower or a plow to get rid of the snow. Like, there's no way you can do it by yourself with a shovel, and really no way two people could do it by themselves with shovels. So, you know, usually we take a multi-pronged approach here. At my house, when it snows significantly, and it snowed significantly here, I think we got close to 2 feet, if not above. You know, my house is at almost 800 feet above sea level, which changes the weather pretty drastically. You know, down the bottom of our little mountain, there can be an inch of snow, but up here where I live, you know, we could get 6 inches. It can differ that much. So for this storm, which we had days of preparation for, they had called this out, you know, a few days in advance and knew how bad it was going to be. We arranged for a plow. I made sure my snowblower had gas. I made sure my generator was gassed up. I made sure that our whole house battery was fully charged. You know, we were ready to go. And of course, it snowed. We got close to 2 feet. Everything shut down for nearly 2 days. And the plow driver came and did his little part. But I have a modest-sized property here, an acre of land. Out here in western Massachusetts, it's not that much, but I know in more developed areas, that seems like a lot of land. And I have a dog. So what I like to do is go around the property with a snowblower and blow out paths for my dog to walk around, paths for me to walk around so I can rake snow off of the roof, right? So it doesn't build up too high, and get the gutters and the edges of the roof clear so the ice will melt and we don't get ice dams, the whole thing. Well, I guess I can't complain too much because I got out there with the snowblower. I started it up. I got it working. I did most of my trails. And, I did the first pass pretty easily. And if you've ever driven a snowblower, at least on the one I have, on the left side, you press down this handle to make it go. That's called a drive lever. And I noticed the drive lever felt a little weird, like almost squishy. But I didn't really think anything of it. I thought maybe like a spring had come loose or there was something I was going to look at later. So I did my first round of snow blowing, no problem. It was fine. I went inside, I rested, and then I decided to go back outside later after another hour or two because it was snowing throughout the day. And I wanted to rake some of the snow off the roof, and I did that. I got it all down onto the driveway in big piles. And then I went to go start the snowblower and press down on that drive lever. And the drive lever just broke. It snapped right off. And I'm like, what the living fuck? So I bend down on the ground, I pick up the broken drive lever, and I notice that it had rusted off. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, why didn't I buy a new snowblower 3-4 weeks ago when I was having problems with the snowblower back then? You know, this is an old machine. It's about 23 years old. But some stuff broke on it at the beginning of the winter season, and I was able to fix it myself, and I was all proud and looking forward to using it in a big storm. But now it's broken again. And so I'm feeling like Sisyphus here. I'm rolling the boulder up the hill, and I'm going to for eternity with this old snowblower, so I might as well replace it. So that's what I'm going to do. But of course, things are made even more difficult now that we've had a massive blizzard. Everybody wants a new snowblower. Everybody wants to replace their old snowblowers, so I don't even know if I can get one. In which case, if we get another storm, which we might, this coming weekend, we are thoroughly fucked. Especially if it's heavy, wet snow. The snow we got was super light and fluffy because it's been bitterly cold here. Like below zero, to the 20s. So super, super cold. And when it's warmer, the snow holds more water and it's heavier. And I don't even want to think about having to shovel 2 feet of heavy, wet snow. So we'll see what happens. Think good thoughts for me. Pray to the snow gods. Anyways, what else did I do over the last week? So, my daughter, Space Unicorn, who is 15, declared to me a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that she believes we are a movie family. Now, that delighted me because I love movies and I love watching movies with my kids. And that Space Unicorn, independently on her own, arrived at the conclusion that we're a movie family. Like I said, delighted me to no end. So I've been trying to get Space Unicorn to watch older movies that I think everybody needs to see. One of the ones we watched this past weekend, and during the snowstorm, was The Shawshank Redemption. Now, I was a huge Stephen King fan as a teenager. I devoured his books ravenously, and I remember reading the novella Different Seasons, from which the story Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption is from. That novella also includes a story called The Body, which became the movie Stand By Me, which we all know. Hopefully, if you don't know Stand By Me or Shawshank Redemption, go see them. Anywho, Space Unicorn and I watched The Shawshank Redemption, and I'm delighted to report that she thought it was a great movie. She cried at the end, just like I did. I always cry at the end of this movie. And I think it should go without saying, I'm going to give some spoilers for Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption in the movie, The Shawshank Redemption. If you haven't seen it by now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to discuss some plot details. So, at the end of the story, or near the end of the story, right before Andy Dufresne escapes from Shawshank, he has this conversation with his friend, Red. Right? Red is this other convict who is justly imprisoned for a murder he committed when he was a young man. Andy Dufresne was convicted of 2 murders he did not commit, and he has been in Shawshank for 20 years. Right, despite building some constructive relationships with the warden and the prison guards, because he's able to help them with taxes and financial advising, Andy Dufresne's experience in prison has been, pretty hellish. And so he gets into a conflict with the warden who he's helping cook the books for, because there's another inmate who has information that could exonerate Andy. And the warden's like, no way. You're not leaving this prison, even if you have information that exonerates you. The implication being that Andy knows too much about the financial crimes of the warden. Well, Andy says to the warden, if you help me get another trial, I won't tell anybody about the crimes we've committed here together. Well, the warden absolutely loses it and throws Andy Dufresne into solitary confinement for 2 months. So Andy gets out of solitary confinement and he meets up with his friend, Red. And after being in solitary for 2 months, Andy has this different demeanor to him. He seems depressed, despondent, and he, basically says to his friend, Red, I'm at a breaking point here. And in these moments, when you're at a breaking point, you have to get busy living or get busy dying. Right? And so this is a really emotional moment in the movie, and it always chokes me up, and I get tearful, and then the movie progresses, to the point where Andy is able to escape from Shawshank prison, and we as the readers of the story and the watchers of the movie learn that Andy had been tunneling a wall in his cell with a little rock hammer, right? He created this long tunnel that went to a utility corridor, sort of, and he was able to escape from the prison by crawling through a shit-filled sewer pipe. And because he was cooking the warden's books, he's able to steal all of the warden's money because he set everything up with a series of fake accounts using a fake identity that only he and the warden knew about. So anyways, there's this really beautiful sequence at the end of the movie where Red, Andy's friend, is finally paroled from prison after 40 years, and he goes to meet Andy down in Mexico in a town called Zihuatanejo. And let me just pause for a second and say Andy Dufresne in the movie is played by Tim Robbins, who does an amazing job, probably his best performance ever. And the character of Red is played by Morgan Freeman. And anyways, sort of the last 2-3 minutes of the movie is Morgan Freeman doing this really beautiful narration over sort of a montage of him leaving Shawshank prison and traveling down to Zihuatanejo to meet up with Andy, who is living under this fake identity that he assumed. And, you know, Morgan Freeman is just an amazing orator and narrator. And, you know, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You know, Morgan Freeman is saying stuff like, I hope the Pacific is as blue as it has been in my dreams. I hope I get to see my friend. I hope. Right? And I get fucking goosebumps every time I hear that and I see that sequence of the movie. It's so beautifully done. And the last scene is of Andy and Red sort of meeting up on a beach in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. And Andy, you know, ultimately getting his redemption, I guess. I don't know whose redemption it is. Is it Andy's? Is it Red's? You know, because Andy is, you know, when he's talking to Red in that scene I told you about earlier, after getting out of solitary confinement, you know, he says to Red, you know, I didn't commit those 2 murders, but I did a lot of bad stuff in my life. I wasn't really a great person, you know, and the people he was accused and convicted of murdering, which he didn't, were his wife and her lover. She was cheating on him. And Andy's like, yeah, I bear responsibility for driving her away from me and into the arms of that lover. You know, I wasn't a good person. I was distant. I didn't treat her well. But he's, you know, and he says, I've spent 20 years of my life in this prison, and I've more than paid for whatever bad things I did in my life. So I'm going to get the fuck out of here. You know, and in that moment when Andy is saying these things to Red, Red thinks Andy's talking about suicide. Red has no idea Andy has made a tunnel from his cell, and he's planning this escape. Anyways, I think what I'm saying is I loved watching this movie again from start to finish. I loved watching it with Space Unicorn, and I was so delighted when she said that she enjoyed it. So now I got to figure out what movie to watch with her next. I'm thinking about Castaway. We've been talking about that one. That's another great movie. But there are so many great movies to watch, isn't there? Aren't there, I should say. Look at me, forgetting how to talk. Okay. Well, let's see. The next thing let's transition sort of to our next topic. And that is, unfortunately, I wanted to talk a little bit about the latest execution of a U.S. citizen by Donald Trump's Border Patrol and ICE goons. This latest one happened on January 24th, 2026. And it happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. where we saw a few weeks ago another U.S. citizen, Renee Nicole Good, get executed by Border Patrol and or ICE goons. I don't remember which of those two ultimately ended up pulling the trigger, but they shot her 3 times for the crime of telling them that she wasn't mad at them and trying to drive away from them when they were screaming at her. So, like I said, this latest execution of a U.S. citizen happened on January 24th, 2026. The person executed was a man named Alex Jeffrey Pretti. He was 37 years old, and he was an intensive care nurse at the Minneapolis VA healthcare system. So he took care of veterans, and the people who know him or knew him, because now he's dead because he was shot 9 to 10 times by Trump's Border Patrol and or ICE goons. But the people who knew him said he was a compassionate and extremely community-oriented person. Like I said, he was a U.S. citizen and he had no criminal record to speak of. Like many of us, he had some routine traffic violations over the course of his years. And who hasn't, right? Well, I guess there's some people who haven't. So what happened? Around 9 a.m. on January 24th, 2026, in South Minneapolis, there was a protest or demonstration happening. There were federal immigration agents, Border Patrol and or ICE, engaging with civilians. There was a protest happening. Some of the civilians in the area were attempting to provide mutual aid to people that ICE and Border Patrol were targeting. And it was an incredibly tense situation. I think made tense also by the summary execution of Renee Nicole Good a few weeks earlier. Right, so Alex Pretti, and I want to say the stuff I'm going to tell you has been reported widely in the news, and there have been numerous videos shared, and much of this has been documented. Okay. So, like I said, Alex Pretti was near this protest, and there are videos showing Pretti holding a cell phone in his right hand. He did not have a firearm in either one of his hands. And he's standing there and recording ICE and Border Patrol interacting with people on the scene. Right? And he was seen to help a woman who had been pushed by ICE or Border Patrol onto the ground. So he moved in to assist her and offer her some aid. And then multiple agents, so Border Patrol and ICE agents, it's hard to tell which, pepper sprayed him in the face, tackled him, and then wrestled Alex Pretti to the ground. And then the video shows something that's really important to understand. One of the videos shows one of the agents, and all of these Border Patrol, or most of these Border Patrol and ICE agents, are wearing fucking masks. Right? So, we can't tell who these people are. But one agent is shown pulling Alex Pretti's legally owned handgun from his waistband after he was on the ground, subdued, and not actively threatening the officers. And this is according to the video analysis by multiple news outlets. Right? It's important to say that Alex Pretti was carrying a legal handgun, and he had a permit to carry that handgun concealed. So he was not breaking the law in any way by having a concealed handgun on his body. And in the state of Minnesota, it is perfectly legal to carry a handgun concealed if you have a permit to a public space. So after Pretti is on the ground, after the agents take his gun, in a matter of seconds, they fire 10 shots into Alex Pretti after he was subdued and after he went motionless on the ground. And if you look at this online, there is a really chilling image of one of the agents brandishing his service weapon and holding it at the back of Alex Pretti's head, or what looks to be like he's holding it to the back of Alex Pretti's head. And I've seen this image juxtaposed against images of Nazi SS officers executing Jewish prisoners during World War II. And I got to be honest with you, it's really hard to tell the difference. They look so similar. So here we have another instance of a Trump immigration goon executing a U.S. citizen in the streets of our country. Now, very soon after this incident occurred, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, without an investigation starting, came out during a press conference and claimed that Pretti approached officers with a handgun and reacted violently, justifying their defensive use of force. And she also asserted that Pretti approached agents with the handgun with the intention of inflicting maximum damage, and described his actions as being equivalent to domestic terrorism. These claims have been widely disputed based on video evidence. And I think the video evidence shows that Kristi Noem is lying. Let's see, what else was said by Trump officials? Stephen Miller, that disgusting little fascist, vampiric wannabe, and the deputy White House chief of staff, made a post on social media calling Alex Pretti a would-be assassin who allegedly tried to murder federal agents. Again, a totally baseless claim, not borne out by any evidence, and not what is depicted in any of the videos that many of us have seen. So, in contradiction to Noam and Miller immediately coming out and trying to put their disgusting little fascist fingers on the scale of public opinion, we have lots of eyewitness and video evidence about what really happened. As verified by Reuters, the Associated Press, the BBC, the New York Times, and other news outlets, Alex Pretti was only holding his phone and not a gun before being confronted, and his gun was removed by an immigration agent before any shots were fired. The videos show and witnesses report that he did not attempt to fire or brandish the weapon, and that the shots were fired while he was restrained on the ground. Again, in my opinion, this is a summary execution, and it is a murder. And if you watch the videos, you will see after Alex Pretti is shot, one of the immigration agents, one of the masked cowards, claps his hands vigorously in celebration. So, at the scene, a doctor who was there has reported that the immigration agents initially prevented medical professionals from providing immediate care. Not that they were going to ever be able to save Alex Pretti. He was shot 9 to 10 times. So I'm not sure anything could have been done. But the point is, just like with Renee Nicole Good, these fucking cowardly, masked ICE and Border Patrol goons stopped doctors from attending to the wounded. In Pretti's case, they ultimately did attempt CPR on him, but after some delay. Let's see, what else happened? What else did Trump's Department of Homeland Security and immigration goons do? They blocked local police and state investigators from initially accessing the scene, which has led to conflicts over the jurisdiction of an investigation and the preservation of evidence. And of course, the Homeland Security's Investigations Department, which is a branch of fucking ICE, is leading the federal investigation with assistance from the FBI. Now, of course, this has raised questions because the Homeland Security Investigations Department does not routinely handle officer involved shooting probes. This is not what usually happens. And I also think this is like asking the fox to watch the hen house, right? You have these immigration enforcement goons executing a U.S. citizen on the street, and then we're going to ask them and entrust them to do an investigation? No, thank you. The state needs to do this investigation. We cannot trust the Trump administration. We cannot trust the Department of Homeland Security. We cannot trust ICE. We cannot trust Border Patrol. So the good news is there's lots of recordings of this event. And my understanding is that a local judge ordered all evidence to be preserved. Although it's hard to know if that's actually happening, right? Because the federal government is not allowing total access and is not being transparent, according to reports, with the local authorities. Again, we cannot trust Department of Homeland Security or Border Patrol or ICE to do a fair investigation. You know, we already know what they think. Stephen Miller has made statements previously about immigration officials having immunity to carry out their mission. So it's already clear what they think, in my opinion. All right, so what else is happening around this? Obviously, the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, as well as the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, have come out strong and continue to condemn the tactics of immigration enforcement officials like Border Patrol and ICE. And they are calling for a reduction of federal forces and more transparency around the investigations. We've seen bipartisan political reactions calling for independent investigations and scrutiny of Border Patrol and ICE tactics. Duh. It doesn't really take much to cross the aisle on that issue, in my opinion. But of course, you know, there are the MAGA diehards and the fascist cosplayers in Congress who continue to defend Trump, Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and ICE. Right? Even though our eyes and ears tell us that what we saw was the summary execution and in my opinion, the murder of a U.S. citizen on the streets by Border Patrol and or ICE. You know, obviously, like with the killing of Nicole Good, the killing of Alex Pretti has, I think, spurred the community, right, to continue to come out and protest across Minneapolis, across the country even, with local politicians and civic leaders and businesses coming out strongly against the tactics of the Trump administration. Some good news. As of this recording, it seems like the outrage to this latest killing, the execution of Alex Pretti, has been so strong that the Trump administration is actually changing its approach, potentially. They have pulled their top Border Patrol official, this little Nazi cosplayer named Gregory Bovino, out of Minneapolis. And some of his top agents are expected to leave. And you should Google this fucking guy, Gregory Bovino. Okay, he dresses like a World War II German Nazi. Like it's clear what kind of message this fucking douchebag of a human being is trying to communicate. And with his appearance, and combine that with what he and his agents are doing on the streets, and it's hard to conclude anything other than this asshole is enjoying playing the role of a fascistic cop and is doing everything he can to broadcast that. Let's see, what else? Unfortunately and unsurprisingly, Trump is continuing to back Kristi Noem. He has said relatively recently that she's not going to step down. CNN reported that. But Trump is taking a slightly different position on who Alex Pretti was compared to what Kristi Noem has said, and what that vampiric little scumbag Stephen Miller has said. Trump has said he doesn't believe that Pretti was an assassin, and that he'll be watching over the investigation into Pretti's fatal shooting. And also, Melania Trump has called for, quote, unity, end quote, in a interview that she recently did. I hope you can see my fucking eyes rolling at that. Both at Trump's statements and at Melania's call for unity. All right. So what can we do? We've had another U.S. citizen assassinated in the streets by Trump's immigration officials. Did I say assassinated? I meant executed. I'm sorry. What can we do? Well, I think we continue to do what we have been doing. We have to continue to protest the activities of ICE and Border Patrol. We need to be loud about it. We need to be visible. I think most importantly, we need to continue to record Border Patrol and ICE. You know, if we've seen any movement at all from Trump, it's because in my opinion, the video evidence that we've seen is irrefutable, right? The videos of Alex Pretti standing there recording ICE with his camera, then moving to help a woman who was pushed to the ground, and then being jumped on by immigration officials, and then shot 10 times, can't be argued with. There are videos of an immigration officer taking his gun away and then them shooting him. He was not a threat anymore. Right? But before we saw these videos, before we knew these videos existed, the Trump administration came out, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and made statements about Alex Pretti. They slandered him. They libeled him. They claimed he was there to be an assassin. They said he was engaging in domestic terrorism. Trump's now fired Nazi cosplayer Gregory Bovino has said that the Second Amendment doesn't apply to protests. The people who are licensed to carry firearms, concealed or otherwise, should think better of it before bringing a gun to a protest. Whether you think Alex should have had the gun with him or not is besides the point. Minneapolis law and the Second Amendment place no restrictions on that. And this is a new turn of thought for the MAGA and the right, who prior to this were all about people carrying guns with them wherever they wanted to, including protests. Remember Kyle Rittenhouse? How do I want to characterize this guy? The white man who brought a hunting rifle to Black Lives Matter protests and shot and killed multiple people. Remember that guy? Remember how MAGA came out and defended him and said he had every right to have a gun with him at a protest? It's interesting how these people have no real beliefs or values. They have no moral compass. They only believe in rules for themselves, and they change them, and everything is done in service to Donald Trump. So continue to record ICE and Border Patrol. Record everything they do, publish it online. The other thing I think we need to do, right, as people who are opposing these immigration Gestapo forces, we need to be writing our legislators and Congress and forcing them to confront the issue of having these unmasked, unaccountable immigration agents terrorizing our cities. I think at a minimum we need to insist that these immigration officials be unmasked, they have clearly identifiable badges and names, and that they be held accountable for what they do. They should not have absolute immunity. They should not be able to execute U.S. citizens in the street. Anyways, I don't know what else to do, okay? I'm sorry. Besides talk to you and give you some obvious suggestions, I don't know what else to do. You know, as a veteran of the United States Army, as somebody who took an oath to defend our Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, I see what's happening on our streets, in our cities like Minneapolis. And I feel compelled to talk about it here, to talk to you about it, my dear listeners. And so this is one thing I can do to help defend our Constitution against these domestic enemies, because that's what they are. Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Greg Bovino. They're enemies of our country. They're enemies of our Constitution. And so that's all I can do right now. Or it's one of the things I'm doing right now, is talking to you. And who knows? I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they'll come for me. Maybe they'll insist my employer fire me. Who knows? But at this time, right now, I can't stay silent about it. Like I said, I'm a veteran. I swore an oath to our Constitution, and I intend to uphold it in any way that I can. And right now, that means talking to you. All right. I think the best way to end this is by reading a statement from the family of Alex Pretti. I believe these are his parents, Michael and Susan Pretti. Okay. So I'm going to end this segment by reading their statement about their son. Here we go. We are heartbroken but also very angry. Alex was a kind-hearted soul who cared deeply for his family and friends, and also the American veterans whom he cared for as an ICU nurse at the Minneapolis VA hospital. Alex wanted to make a difference in this world. Unfortunately, he will not be with us to see his impact. I do not throw around the hero term lightly. However, his last thought and act was to protect a woman. The sickening lies told about our son by the administration are reprehensible and disgusting. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs. He has his phone in his right hand and his empty left hand is raised above his head, while trying to protect the woman ICE just pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed. Please get the truth out about our son. He was a good man. Thank you. Oh, no. Thank you, Michael, Susan. And thank you, Alex. And I don't think it is too far to call Alex Pretti a hero. To call Nicole Renee Good a hero. These U.S. citizens had their lives taken from them by agents of the United States of America because they were engaging in their First Amendment rights to be out on the street and to tell their government and their elected leaders that they are unhappy with them. That's in the very first fucking amendment of the Constitution, people. And Nicole and Alex, by standing up to these, to quote from Michael and Susan Pretti's statement, murdering and cowardly ICE thugs, they are heroes. So no, I don't think they're using the term lightly. And I think they are using it correctly. And each and every one of us has a fucking choice to make. Trust your eyes and ears. Trust what you are seeing. Do not be gaslit. Do not believe the lies. Our country is under attack. Our way of life is under attack. Our freedom is under attack. And each and every one of us can play a role in stopping it. Whether it's going to a protest in your city, whether it's writing to your congressman, whether it's doing a stupid fucking podcast. We can all do something, okay? So I beg you, please do something. Do not be silent and indifferent. Do not be one of the people who did nothing. Because what they say is true. When they are done going after immigrants to this country, illegal or otherwise, then they're going to go after somebody else. Then they're going to go after somebody else after those people, and so on, until they get to you. Do not let this continue. Do something, please. All right, that's enough. Okay, my dear listeners, thank you for listening. If this is the first time you're listening to me, or you're listening and you haven't yet done this, please follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram. I have a Substack where I publish essays now. You can follow us there. Don't follow me on X. Fuck X. Fuck Elon Musk. Okay? I want to hear from you, please. You can send me feedback. You can email me, softservepodcast@gmail.com. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram. Okay? At our Soft Serve Podcast accounts. Our website has a contact form. You can go there and fill that out. Send me smoke signals. I don't care what you do. Okay? I just want to hear from you. All right? Okay, folks. Sorry. That was intense. That was an intense way to end the show. That's how I feel it was intense. Maybe you don't. But that leads me to the end here. My beautiful friends, the end. So, without further ado, I say to you, the thing I say at the end of each episode, the thing that is uniquely mine, I say to you, bye now.
This world of ours, ever growing smaller, must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate. Those who have freedom will understand also its heavy responsibility. That all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, and that the sources, scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made disappear from the earth. And that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. I shall never cease to do what little I can to help the world advance along that road.